Hello and welcome to another episode of Flower Breeding. In this episode, we'll talk about Hemerocallis, the scientific name for the daylily. The scientific name for its genus derives from the word for one day in Greek, hemero, and the Greek word for beauty, callis. So directly translate, it means beauty for a day, which makes sense. Most of the older cultivars and wild species bloom and decline within a 12-hour period. All species are native to Asia, but Hemerocallis fulva was introduced to North America in the 17th or 18th century. Due to Hemerocallis fulva's ability to adapt to different environments, it naturalized itself in Britain and North America after escaping from gardens. Most botanists believe that this is an ancient complex hybrid consisting of many different species merged together. The foundation cultivars of much of the daylily germplasm used to breed modern daylilies was founded free plant breeders. Let's start with Lamon Bechtold. He was named after Victor Lamon by his mother, as both she and her husband were both avid gardeners and hoped that their son would follow suit. And it worked out just fine, as it turns out, as their hopes were requited. Mr. Bechtold lived from 1896 to 1963. His primary vocation was music business in Denver, but his spare time was spent breeding daylilies. He had a great fascination with spiral-petaled daylilies, and in 1922 he began to breed a whole series of them. And he created a foundation stock from which all modern spiral-petaled daylilies were bred. Indeed, many of the cultivars you grow today are of his stock. Now on to the breeder, George Yeld. He lived from 1845 to 1938 in Yorkshire. He was a schoolmaster whose avocation was horticulture. Apart from teaching, he also bred daylilies. He also bred the first modern hybrid daylily, Hemerocallis apricot. This cultivar was bred by crossbreeding Hemerocallis mittendorfi with Hemerocallis liliosporidillas. He bred a total of 37 cultivars using Hemerocallis fulva, flava, mittendorfi, Dermitriae, and other species as parents. These were amongst the first hybrid varieties of Hemerocallis, and laid the foundations for further hybridization. The last of the foundation breeders was Amos Perry. He lived from 1871 to 1953. A close friend of Mr. Yeld, he owned a nursery that specialized in breeding daylilies. Over the course of his lifetime, he bred and released more than 270 cultivars of daylily, although almost none of them are still in commerce. He also bred many of the iris cultivars we know of today as well. Much of the hybrids between multiple species we know of were bred by Mr. Perry actually, especially daylily and iris. Much of his breeding stock came from the continent, specifically Germany and Italy. These included Hemerocallis revolt and Hesperus, bred by Charles Sprenger and William Mueller, respectively. He also obtained new wild species such as Hemerocallis aurantiacea major from Japan, and a subspecies of Hemerocallis fulva called rosea. Now on to its history within the United States. In terms of interest in daylily, the interest started in the Midwest, where the precursor to the American Hemerocallis Society started. Dr. Arlo Burdett Stout was one of the best-known breeders of daylilies back in the mid to early 20th century. He was the first to devise experiments to figure out how the reproductive system of Hemerocallis fulva actually works, and through this process he was able to breed over 100 hybrid varieties of Hemerocallis, expanding the amount of colors available in commerce. He then formed an agreement with a nursery owned by Mr. Bertrand Farr, a nursery based in Pennsylvania, which promoted his cultivars, and through this process became the dean of Hemerocallis studies, and several universities had a Stout Award for the best cultivar of daylily each and every year. His breeding work continued as well, as dozens of new species from China were sent to his office to continue his breeding work. He always withdrew further and further into himself due to his introversion and the death of his only son at the age of 9. His only surviving child, Elizabeth, kept all his papers and memorabilia after he died. On the topic of the Stout Awards, it was found that genetically speaking, the winning cultivars would be descendants of the previous winning cultivar. And so, almost half of the cultivars that Stout Award Committees selected had a previous Stout winner as a parent. The last breeder of diploid Hemerocallis was W. Quinn Buck, based in Southern California. His work reached the epoch of what you can do with diploid species. Following that, everyone moved towards tetraploid forms. Dr. Robert Greisbach pioneered this phenomenon. Through the addition of colchicine, one can double the chromosome number of Hemerocallis seeds. Very few plants could survive this process, but the ones that did had bigger flowers. The problem is, these tetraploids had lower vigor and pest resistance. These modern varieties, however, kept on being bred, with different breeders playing a role in building upon this new foundation. Brother Charles, for instance, developed the Heavenly and Angel series of Hemerocallis, who refined the older, but still flimsy and untidy, ruffled Daylilies into saleable cultivar forms. In Florida, Ralph Wheeler bred evergreen varieties of Daylily as well as ruffled varieties. These different breeding processes also led to new color formations to appear, such as violet, purple, and deep red. These new varieties were further improved to add disease resistance as well. And that concludes our video. Thank you for watching.